And I would like to link this with the speech of our friend from Bankislami, Amir. I'm amazed to hear the story of the Bank Islami and the way things have moved up. So, and I like to draw parallels to a conventional bank, an old bank in Pakistan, and then come to the point of the summit on it. So, one of the big bank in Pakistan is actually run by the owner. And if I take the name of that bank, you probably everyone would know the owner, but I don't think so. Many would know the CEO of that bank, and I know the credit decisions takes place, at the top floor of that bank head office. While those decisions should be dedicated in many cases to branch level on the corporate office and all that. And from here we come to the issue of the separation of ownership and control. So there is the separation of ownership and control is not really happening in Pakistan, even in the many listed companies. And again, that bank I'm talking about is every company of that group is almost every company in that group is listed. And but those listed companies have a control, kind of a pyramiding, and they have a control from within the family. And when they do that, their shareholding dispersed, but their control enhances. And when these things happen, that the masses are not really coming into the capital market to invest, and they go into the real estate and the market. Of course, there are plenty of other reasons. The KYC is very high, and the taxation is very high, and the capital market, well, it's all gray in the real estate. And every now and then you get the amnesty scheme and everything. Now construction getting the industry status, and there's so many issues in the stock exchange. But one of the fundamental reason is that there is a less separation of ownership and control. And of course, it's not the model everywhere has that. In Germany, Japan, they moved on this ownership model, where the US and the West has moved on the more on the separation of the control. But every like an authoritarian and a democratic system, there are pluses and minuses of that. But we are using a democratic system with an authoritarian flavor in it. So that's happening in our politics. That's happening in our corporation as well. So to me, that's a fundamental issue here in Pakistan, and that's and then when the in it's not the problem of SMEs as per se. It's the problem of big corporation as well. And that's why I talked about one of the big corporation in Pakistan. And I'm sure many of you would know what I'm talking about. Who am I talking about? I don't need to take names, but that's a fundamental issue. So with this kind of a mindset, with this kind of a governance structure, people don't trust. People don't invest in their stocks. People don't. People say that okay, they use our money and have all that. Even in a bank with a mutual fund and everything, mutual fund invest in the pro books, and when you see those things, so the mistrust would increase. So that's we need to regain that trust. So we need to have more examples like Bank Islami to come on foray, and that would gain the trust of the people, and that can attract the capital as well as the capability. Now this guy is sitting, he's a capable guy. Now now many people would like to invest in this company, and that's how it happens. So coming to Samad, because Samad is running is from one of the big groups, and they don't have that kind of an issues in that. And Angro has a very different history, management run company. Then the Dawood family coming up into that. And I've been interacting with the board of Angro Corp, and I've seen that it would say that there's so many independent members and all that. And the management, the Angro Corp CEO was once Inbox CEO, and he grew up with the company and everything. So there are examples that. But some of the problem with it's with many other organizations, the way I talked about the another bank and the control and ownership, how to change that culture and how to work on this.
So I think it's a really good question, and at the end, I think it's all about understanding what behaviors get rewarded, right? Because we are benefit seeking or benefit maximizing beings, and at least when Amir Khan Saab was talking about the code of corporate governance, and when it came in, we were one of the strongest deniers of wanting to go for that. Right, it was a big problem for us. But I think any change is hard. But when we got into it and we saw the benefit it was having in terms of board management dynamics, and we started experimenting, really focusing on it, we saw value out of it, right? So which is why we're not doing what is minimum by the code. We have half of independent. We don't need to do that. But it's one of the best ways of getting the capabilities that you need and an external perspective that you need, because the role of the owner is different from the role of the board, which is different from the role of the management. And because we double hat a lot of these responsibilities, we tend to forget that there is a different responsibility at every single layer. And because we forget that, we can't spot opportunities. So having the ability to have a management team run by leaders like Ayas and others, it means that we don't need to manage. We can focus on saying, okay, how does the board work? Where's the long-term direction? How do we allocate capital? How do we get the right people to come up the organization? And that brings scale and diversity and helps us to manage complexities in a much better way. But again, we make a lot of mistakes along the way. So it's always trial and error, but you got to get the right people around the table first.
So, and I'd like to have Amir, your view on it. I mean, in your journey, I mean, the way the conventional banking is happening in Pakistan, and usually we see the CEOs who are above the age of the 60s and all that. You become the CEO in your 30s, and then you're able to change that bank. So, what kind of a support you got from the board? What kind of a resistance you get from the industry? And what is the message for the other banks and other organizations who are much older than you, and they are probably falling, or I would not use the word decay, but they're not growing because of the red tapeism and those kind of issues there which you don't have. So how other organizations can move up from that?
Thank you so much. So let me try to quickly answer the question you have posted, which is definitely a long one. The answer can be long, but I will try to summarize it. Let me give you a very, very basic example, because basic example helps to understand. And this is what we do every day in Bankislami. आपके पास एक गाड़ी है, आप उसके ओनर हैं, आप उसको खुद चला सकते हैं. लेट्स ड्राइव इट. आपके पास ही उसका स्टीयरिंग होना चाहिए, एक्सीलेटर भी आपके पास होना चाहिए, ब्रेक्स और गियर सब आपके पास होने चाहिए. वन डे यू डिसाइड्स कि मैं ये ड्राइवर को दूंगा बिकॉज मेरे पास और भी बहुत सारे काम हैं. तो फिर आपको ड्राइविंग सीट ड्राइवर को देनी पड़ती है. आप अपनी लाइफ में ऐसे ही करते हैं. आप उसको स्टीयरिंग भी देते हैं, एक्सीलेटर भी देते हैं, ब्रेक्स भी देते हैं. यू डू सम मॉनिटरिंग ओवर द ड्राइवर, बट ऐसा नहीं होता कि आप कहेंगे जी ब्रेक्स मेरे पास रहेंगी और स्टीयरिंग तुम अपने पास रखो, गियर मैं अपने पास रखूंगा. So this is how a company should work as well. जो जैसे आप अपनी गाड़ी जिसके अंदर अपनी फैमिली को भी ट्रस्ट कर देते हैं उस ड्राइवर को, ऐसे ही आपको कंपनी भी चलानी होती है. If an owner has the capability and capacity and time to run a company, it is a very good model. There is no harm in doing it. दुनिया में बेशुमार बहुत सक्सेसफुल कंपनी है जो ओनर रन है, and they are very good. But over there the owner has both authority and responsibility. दोनों ओनर ने रखी होती हैं. ऐसा नहीं होता कि जी गलत हो गया तो किसी और ने किया और सही हो गया तो मैंने किया. Then there is another model where you entrust the entire authority and responsibility paradox to the management to the agent. जैसे ड्राइवर आपका एजेंट होता है, इस तरह मैनेजमेंट आपकी है. और जब आप उसको सारा ट्रस्ट कर देते हैं, then you do some sort of supervision definitely, but सारे इंस्ट्रूमेंट उसके पास होते हैं, ब्रेक्स, एक्सीलेटर, steering, everything is with the agent. So that also works. Now there is a hybrid model in between whereby you control half of the things. आप कहते हैं यार ऐसा करो, स्टीयरिंग तो तुम मुझे दे दो और ब्रेक भी मेरे पास होंगी, एक्सीलेटर तुमने दबाना है मुझे, तो स्पीड तो मुझे चाहिए 2.24 सेकंड वाली, लेकिन जो अभी हमने फॉर्मूला 1 में देखी थी, लेकिन मेरे पास स्टीयरिंग मेरा होगा और ब्रेक्स मेरे होंगे, तो वो ब्रेक दबा के रखेगा और स्टीयरिंग भी अपनी मर्जी से घुमाएगा, तो गाड़ी विल नॉट गो एनीवेयर, द ऑर्गेनाइजेशन विल नॉट गो एनीवेयर. तो जहां पर इस तरह से ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को रन करेंगे आप, तो वो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस एक फिक्स में फंसी रहेंगी हर वक्त. अथॉरिटी और रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी कभी क्लियर नहीं होगी, कंट्रोल भी कभी क्लियर नहीं होगा. अच्छा, इसके लिए जो समद ने बात की, इट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल थिंग, और स्टीवन कोवे की एक बुक है 7 हैबिट्स, जो बैंक इस्लामी में हमने तकरीबन मैंडेटरी की हुई है कि सबने पढ़नी है। सबने पढ़ी नहीं है मगर अभी तक, लेकिन बहुत सारों ने पढ़ी हुई है। सो उसके अंदर देयर इज अ कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ ट्रस्ट रिलेशनशिप एंड ट्रस्ट अकाउंट, कि आपने अपने बेटे के साथ भी ट्रस्ट अकाउंट खोलना है, अपनी वाइफ के साथ भी खोलना है, अपनी बेटी के साथ भी खोलना है, अपने फ्रेंड्स के साथ भी खोलना है। तो these are trust. The amount of credit available in the trust, if you do something wrong, you can draw on that credit. So जब trusting relationships जो अभी समद ने एक्सप्लेन किया था वो बनती हैं, तो फिर ये चीजें ऑटोमेटिकली चलने लगती हैं। जिस ड्राइवर पे आप ट्रस्ट करते हैं उससे आप रोज नहीं पूछते आज क्या किया, ना उसकी गाड़ी को रोज चेक करते हैं, लेकिन जिसे ट्रस्ट नहीं करते, यू पुट प्रॉब्ली मोर आई ऑन दैट ड्राइवर। ट्रस्ट इज एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट, एंड देन क्लैरिटी दैट कि मुझे खुद चलानी है ये ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या मैंने किसी से चलवानी है। तो इसमें भी बड़ी इट्स अ बाइनरी डिसीजन, 1 and 0. इट इज नॉट 0.5, इट इज नॉट 0.8। जस्ट लाइक ड्राइविंग अ कार इज अ बाइनरी डिसीजन दैट मैंने चलानी है या ड्राइवर से चलवानी है। इसी तरह कंपनी में भी इट्स इज ऑल्सो अ बाइनरी डिसीजन कि हमने रन करनी है कंपनी या डेलीगेट करनी है। नाउ द एग्जांपल व्हिच यू आर कोटिंग, इन मेनी ऑफ दीज केसेस देयर इज अ ह्यूज कंफ्यूजन, जहां पर जैसे समद ने राइटली आइडेंटिफाई किया, स्पॉन्सर जो है वो खुद रन भी नहीं करना चाहता बट कंट्रोल भी रखना चाहता है। और जहां पर हमारे पास ऐसे स्पॉन्सर्स भी हैं जो कहते हैं ठीक है यार, वी विल कम इन, वी विल रिव्यू थिंग्स, वी विल see what you are presenting to us, and then you also deliver on the results, so then we are willing to give you capital. So both models are there in the market, but both models are successful. The model in the middle is not successful. On the model 1 and 2 both are successful, but 1.5 is not successful. So ये मेरा व्यू है। और बैंक इस्लामी की जैसे आपने बात की, तो बैंक इस्लामी runs on one of the model, whereby the sponsors and the board are very very clear that they are not involved at all into any day-to-day operations and management, and they are only there to supervise and oversee things and to ensure that bank is delivering on agreed strategic plans and targets, and everything is delegated to management. They just ensure that they hire right people, means hire a right driver and then allow him to drive. So they hire a right management and then allow the management to run the bank.
I'll just add one thing. I think Amir, you captured it really well. So I'll just build on your car analogy, where I think there's a conversation about what balance to get to. So agree that the steering wheel, the brakes, the accelerators, the day-to-day running of the car is very much the driver's responsibility. I think where we see evolution and pendulum swings is who says jana kidhar hai or kis route pe jana hai. That's where I think the nuances come in. And you see companies in the West which are very management heavy. हम भी बताएंगे हमने कहाँ जाना है और हमने कितना अच्छा काम किया है, and then that leads to principal agent problems. And over here, the example that you gave is the corollary to that, where you have too much domination. कि अब मैं ही चलाऊंगा और जिम्मेदारी तुम्हारी है. So I think both models don't work, as you mentioned.
So the other problem in which Amir showed is like, fine, it's run fine when you're running the car by yourself, but if you're a good driver, how about your son might not be a good driver, and then you're giving it to your son, then there's a problem. So that's why getting to the management and having a succession plan is very important. So you can be an entrepreneur and naturally gifted and can run things and can work hard work over there with smart thinking, but maybe your daughters, your son, they might not be doing that. So it's the bigger the organization gets, it's better to shift the control and all that. So so the discussion time is coming up. So I would like to take some questions. Yes, sir, please.
Samar Saab, I was struck by your remark, gas at a commercial price leading to a urea at a commercial price. Are we looking at the Kisan March to Islamabad? Your answer, and then I like Ali Khizar to also comment on it. Thank you.
So I think that not at all are we thinking about or proposing that the urea prices should go up for everybody. But it's well understood that non-targeted subsidies lead to perverse incentives. Whenever we separate economic viability from financial feasibility, perverse incentives come in. And that is not good for the economy overall or society. At the end, the society pays a price for it. So what we propose is keep it market-based, and whomever needs to have some support or some subsidy, have direct subsidies. And I think the great work that has been done on documenting and expanding SRs and documenting people who are deserving and all provides us technological tools to be able to be a lot more direct with the way we allocate subsidies. Why should people like us get subsidies? We can afford it. Why should their money not be saved and reinvested in the economy? Whether it's to provide better products, create better value for employees, fund innovation, whatever those things are. But if it's leading to an outcome where, according to some estimates, 1 million tons of urea is being utilized, which it doesn't need to, we should talk about that, right? But that million ton is not providing value. So what is the point of applying it? So there's a misdirection of scarce resources. It's very important for any company, country, or individual to know what are the resources I have, what's the productivity of those resources, and continue to increase that productivity by constantly iterating and deploying that effectively. I think that's a conversation very important. And I'll give you the last example of telecom industry. Telecom industry, there's no price control, right? The government normally has price control as a policy. And the evidence shows that in that you neither get price or productivity. So you lose out on both ends. And the telecom industry is a good example where prices are not regulated. Can anybody argue that a mobile phone today is less valuable than electricity? But it's not. Prices are not regulated. And it's led to the industry competing, but resulting in one of the lowest prices in the world for telecom connectivity in Pakistan. So those conversations are very important to have. How do we incentivize good behavior, good productivity, so that people invest in technology or capability? Otherwise, there's no incentive to do so.
Absolutely. The deregulation in many industries is so important for Pakistan. For the banking and telecom, we saw the deregulation in the past 2 decades that's really moved up the industry. And in case of the fertilizer and all that, so if we deregulate the industry, if we give them the pricing control, then we have to deregulate the whole value chain. I mean, the cost has to be deregulated. It has to be internationally competitive cost, and then you let them compete with an import, and they can export, and you can subsidize the farmer. But it's a very complicated equation. You cannot start with the one end. So we can go on and talk much more on that, but I'm not driving. These guys are driving, so the time is up. And we like to have a discussion, and probably when we'll take a break, and we can carry on this discussion. Thank you so much, Samad and Amir.